Hey guys, Julian here, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how to make organic house drums in the style of Christian ffler, Max Cooper, Kiasmos. You know the style, and today I'm going to be showing you all about the drums, because I made a few videos in the style before, but I wanted to make one actually just talking about drums, because there's a lot that can be talked about just in the drum section. Now, before we get started, I want to let you guys know I just dropped a new sample pack. If you're looking for some new inspiration or some new things to work with, the sample pack is called Definitive Organic House Drum Loops Volume 1, and what it contains is 10 of these really nice different organic house drum loops. I'll play a few of them for you. So you can hear it's a bunch of really solid loops, but on top of that, you get all the individual sounds for each loop as well. So really, it's a lot more than just 10 loops, but it's like 10 kits here of these different loops. And yeah, this just gives you a bunch of great inspiration and new stuff to work with, you know, just a bunch of cool layers, as well as like a lot of these cool like Foley layers, which can be kind of hard to chop up on your own, but this way, you just have some cool loops you can work with. It also includes these bonus atmospheric noises that you can use in your tracks, as well as a bunch of drum one-shots, and also including some organic house Ableton racks. So these are just a bunch of different sounds that you can use that are going to sound really good. Like, I really like this one, for example. So yeah, it's got pretty much everything you need, honestly, to make a really solid organic house track. Plus, you get a bunch of really awesome new inspiration, and on top of that, it really helps support me. So link for that is at the top of the description. Thanks for the support, everyone, and let's dive into the tutorial. So I have here, actually, basically this is made up of a bunch of different layers that I used to make the sample pack, and I'm just kind of laid them all out here for tutorial purposes. So this is what this loop sounds like. And so the first thing I want to talk about is that, obviously, this style of drums, it's going to be a bit more busy than you would typically want in, like, a house track, right? Like, with house music and techno and those kinds of things, you're usually trying to get, like, as few layers as possible to get the biggest sound possible, right? But here, it's really about creating this, like, full thing with, like, all these little different background sounds happening, but still just being able to, like, make that where it's not going to be too much, right? Like, knowing how to have a lot of stuff and have a busy pattern, but it's not ever, like, too much stuff. And I think that really comes down to studying house music and studying these styles of music that came before this, and really understanding how to make, like, a really simple thing work, and then taking that and then going and making something busy. Because, like, I personally actually started with a lot of this kind of music. Like, before I got into making techno and more straightforward house and stuff, I was trying to make this kind of stuff. And the problem was that going into it, I didn't really understand, like, the foundations of, like, just making something work really well with, like, a really fat kick, a really nice hi-hat, you know, a good clap, all that kind of stuff. Fan fell over. But the thing is, if you understand that, then you can go and do these layers on top of it with, like, the Foley percussion and all the little percussions bouncing around. Versus, if you try to start with this kind of stuff, I think a lot of times you're going to get lost because you're going to try to make stuff that's way too busy and you're not really going to get how to make that groove work. And we're going to talk about throughout this video how to make that happen, but really the main thing that makes this busy groove work is just the fact that every layer is in its own space, right? Like, if you listen to even like these, two different Foley percussions. Like, you can solo any two of these, and you can hear them, you know? As soon as you start getting into that place where, like, you're taking out layers and it doesn't sound like anything is different, that's where you want to start, like, kind of dialing it back. But yeah, so the first thing we're going to think about here is the kick. And so this is one of my kicks. Ironically, this is actually more like a melodic techno kick. I think is what I originally made it for, but it works really well for the style. So typically the style of kicks that you're going to be looking for are going to be more like soft, like 808 style. Like I said, like a more almost melodic techno style kick, or like even like a melodic house, like in June Deep style kick. Like just that kind of softer but still very punchy kick like this. And you're not going to process it too much. Like typically, you don't need to do too much stuff because it's really just about getting a solid kick. And so you're not really going to want to worry too much about like, over compressing or saturating or anything like that. Just get like a solid 808 style kick that has a lot of punch to it. And then it's just about leveling that out in the mix. And yeah, then underneath that we have the claps and the rim shots. Typically for this style of track, you're going to have, like just like you would normally have in a house groove, boom, boom, like that, kind of bouncing off the kick. But obviously, it's a very specific style of sort of clap that you're going to use here, right? So we have this rim shot. And also some live claps. And so either one of these would work on their own, but I layered them together for this one. And yeah, that's typically what you want to shoot for. More like a rim shot, almost even more like a Barrio style rim shot or something like that. More of like a UK garage kind of sound like this one is. Or you're going to go for some more like live claps. You don't usually want to just get like, like in more standard styles of house, you're using like a 909 clap or an 808 clap or something like that. Typically, you want to shy away from that stuff and go for more organic sounds. So again, just like live claps, rim shots, that kind of stuff. And I don't have that much processing on, I don't have any processing on these actually. And I want that to highlight something else as well. I think a lot of times people think for these like magical, perfect rim shots, the way you're going to do it is essentially taking like any old rim shot and then there's like a magical processing suite or a magical like processing rack that everybody's using. And it's really not that. It's really just about taking that time to find really good rim shots. And they're a lot easier to find these days as well. But like, just getting something really good like that that's got that like to it. It's not about the processing. It's just about getting a good sample and showcasing what that sample has to offer rather than, like I said, finding some magical processing rack for it. Now the other thing you'll notice here is that I have these low notes with the rim shot, and these are playing off of the other percussions here. So yeah, if you have this rim shot, you can actually get some kind of cooler little hits out of it if you just play a few like lower notes in there. And then just make sure it's very sparse, right? Like there's only a few hits. It's only 4 extra hits throughout this whole 2-bar groove. But just having those in there, like if I turn it off, you can hear it almost doesn't even have the same groove without those. And that just comes down to like not being afraid to try it, right? Like I think a lot of times people think you have to get a new sample for that, but why would you do that? You have this cool rim shot. Just play it pitched down. And it's going to be more organic this way because it's being made, it's like a new percussion being made with a sound that you already have in the track rather than just adding in a new percussion sample. So then underneath that, we have this hi-hat. And usually this is going to be really simple, right? Just like right on the upbeats. But it kind of just comes back to like I was saying about like choosing the right sample. Like this is just going to be a very mid-rangey like... Yeah, you don't want like a big open 909 hi-hat or anything like that. Just something like this that'll sit really nicely on the groove. And yeah, then we have the Foley percussion, which sounds like this. So what's happening here, I'll play it with the kick, is we're using these like live recorded sounds. Now all of these were recorded in that same method that I've shown you guys before where, you just grab some different things that are on your desk, turn your mic on, you can already hear everything falling in the background. I have like a lighter, fingerboard, a marker, and then you just record like that. You just kind of basically jumble the stuff together, And what happens is you're going to get different rhythms out of that. You might have noticed there, like, some little 16th notes, or maybe, like, it sounds like 8th notes. But the point is that you're recording just randomly. You're just going to move it around and get those different sounds happening. And you don't have to just do it that way. That's one way that I like to do it. You could also go out in nature and record sounds. You could also, bring different objects in and try to get a little bit more creative with it than just whatever's on your desk. But the point is that you're recording sounds and you're not really aiming for anything in particular. And then what happens is, once you have, say, like a minute of that recorded, then you can take it and you can see that's essentially what I did here, right? This is just like this long sample. And then you just zoom in and you find these little movements here. Like, for example, this is doing like right here you have like, there we go. That's like a whole groove in and of itself. And it doesn't always have to be perfectly on the grid either. But like, then we have this one. Now that's very like rigid, but you can hear like that was all recorded randomly. And then you just find little cool chunks in there. Or this one's even more straightforward. And then these all come together. You do maybe 2 or 3 layers of this. And it can even be the same sample too, right? Just different parts. And that's how you essentially make that fit in rhythmically. Because obviously, like, you could try and, like, record it to perfectly fit into the beat. And maybe sometimes you might have that. Like, you might have, like, for example, like, I have these 2 coins here. Like, you might want to do that, like, right on 1/16th note or something like that. But for the most part, you're just kind of recording it and then sort of putting it in later. And that's what creates the sound. And then there's a little bit of processing on these. You can see, like, this one is just a high-pass filter, and then it's not actually being sidechained. This one's got a bit of echo on a high-pass filter. This one's got a little bit of this technique I like to use where you can see we have a filter on here. This is a bandpass filter, but we're using an 8th note LFO. So you're having 2 rhythms happen now. You're having the one that's already in the sample, and then you're also having the filter on top of that. So now it's wow, wow, wow. And if I turn that off, you can hear it. It's a lot less rhythmic. So that's another thing, having that layer of detail there where this is doing 2 movements at once rather than just having that one that you would get from the Foley. And yeah, so that's how you do that. Then underneath that, we just have some extra percussions, right? Like I have the shaker. Just a nice organic shaker loop. Live. And then I also have like these, which really are just some different background sounds. These are from the bonus drum one-shots pack, actually. But these are just like, filling in that extra space, right? Like if I turn these off, it's still the same groove, but there's just something missing. And then when we bring these in, it just adds that extra kind of movement on top of everything. And you can see the technique with this one is I just grabbed a bunch of different percussion sounds and brought them into a drum rack. Like, why, who's to say you can't just get like the entire sample pack and put it in a drum rack? And then what happens is, then instead of going and finding them over here and slowly dragging them in, you just have everything at your disposal. And then you can just create these like kind of complex grooves that way. So that's how I've done that. You can see we didn't use nearly all of them, but it's just a matter of having them all there so that then when you are doing it, you might find the ones that you wouldn't find just scrolling through the sample pack and grabbing them one by one. And yeah, so if you follow these steps, you should be able to make these drums. It's not that hard. It just takes a little bit of kind of finesse work and shaping things like this and just understanding what's going on. I think this is one of those things that's not that hard if you know how to do it, but if you've never seen like this video and you don't really get how to do it, then you could get lost pretty quickly. So that's going to be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get Definitive Organic House Volume 1 Drum Loops. Link is right in the top of the description. Really helps support me, and also helps support you, because you get all these great samples that you can work with, and, really make some high quality sounding drums. I think this is one of the best organic house sample packs on the market. You know, a lot of them don't really sound that good, don't really sound like the tracks that we love, but this one really was made with a lot of care in mind to make it sound as good and as full sounding as the references that we discussed earlier. You know, it's like, it's not really that useful if it's just a bunch of sounds to kind of play with. These are real high quality sounds that you can work with and build a professional sounding track off of. So yeah, links in the top of the description. Thank you very much for the support, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.